So yesterday I drew some designs on my plexiglass that had the paper attached to it. Then I thought about it and I said, well, if these dies won't last forever, it's going to be of use to me to be able to reprint these pages and just stick them on plexiglass in the future to recut my dies. So what I did was I took my image here and I threw it in my copy machine, which basically is a function on my printer. I just scan and copy, and I made copies, and they're true to size. So this basically is something that I will file away in a folder and keep for future use, so I can always copy and print more of them and just spray adhesive attach them right to plexiglass in the future. And of course, now if I am experimenting with these designs and something is too intricate and it fails to work well as a die, then I won't reuse that one. But if it turns out it's a great success, then I'm going to happily want to use it again, especially if I'm doing any kind of small scale production. So what I've got is the intention to make a die that will, with negative space, raise annealed copper. Annealed copper is going to be placed into the contained urethane holder, and then you're going to have your urethane pushing the annealed copper through the die. And I cut out a little piece of plywood, tiny, tiny plywood, and I made a heart. And I was experimenting with it, and it does crush down a good bit after first use. So this is like a one-time use thing, but I got a pretty good shape. And I want to explain to you something about corners. When you get to making a corner, I want to show you this. Do you see that top of that heart has like a little kind of a square notch to it? Do you see that tiny little square in the top piece right there? That gives you a really good edge in the corner of your die. So when you design your own drawings, if you can see that, when you design your own drawings, you want to consider the way metal flexes under pressure. And so that is one of those pointers that I wanted to share with you before we started this. Another thing is metal looks completely different when it's domed up a lot versus domed up slightly. So this was a low dome, and that gives a good visual impression of having been shaped, but it's only been raised by like less than 1/8 of an inch. This was thicker before the actual compression took place, but after, 12 tons of pressure, that has been squished down substantially. But yeah, it served for the one-time purpose at least. And now I know at least I like the way the shape comes out. So that, for an experiment, without having to cut out my acrylic die first, this works really well for playing around with ideas. If you want to go get this is like, I think, in the little wood section of Michael's. I paid $2 for a pack of a couple of little rectangles of this little 3-ply plywood. It's probably meant for birdhouses and stuff like that, and probably scroll saw art, cutting out names. But for just drawing a little idea out and cutting it out really quick with your jeweler's saw and throwing it in your hydraulic press, just with some intention of playing around, you can find out if you like your shape enough to use it as a stencil to then put it onto an acrylic die. And then you can stencil it on just like that. And now I know I'm going to really like the heart that comes out of this. So this is worthwhile making a die out of. I will say that I have my doubts about some of my die designs. I drew little shamrock, for instance, and it's going to be an experiment, and I have not tried this yet with the plywood, but with those sharp edges coming in, there's potential that the pressure will break it. So we don't actually know until you try, and that's part of making your own dies. It's a it's an experiment. I actually want to go a little crazy and maybe do something a little too intricate. This is going to be something I'll put on a later video. Well, anyhow, let's get to cutting.